Hadley, what's the, who wants to go first? Alan? Yeah.
Okay.
Pointing on. Sorry, Councillor Hickley. Sure. Councillor Hickley, I'll defer to the CEO just to get the chance. Councillor Rankin. Okay, Councillor Rankin, would you like to read those points? Is there some? Okay, submission number. Do you know what the submission number? 147. Cool. Thanks.
Yes, I support the sale of 72 Lake Terrace and the redevelopment of a new limited use accommodation in the CBD in conjunction with a new cultural civic centre. I've been promoting the need for a new extension to the Museum Art Gallery for many years, and I'm now pleased that the momentum and the need for a new cultural centre is being discussed. I attended a TDC workshop presented by Wayne and was pleased with the support of Council at that workshop, and trust that support is now continued to the next stage. I was involved with the Lido Swimming Complex in Palmerston North back in 1991 after the first efforts by Council failed to get public support for the plans presented. After the failed attempt, a committee of ratepayers was set up to have discussion and get ideas about wave pools, slides, etc., and other options for the Lido revamp. The result was a solution that a public input was therefore accepted as the best solution, a solution that was then approved by council and the new Lido complex was built. My point is that TDC need to ensure the next phase for the cultural centre includes a committee of local people that can work with the whole district to get a result we can then all accept and proceed with and be proud of the result. I support the budgeted funding of 15.7 million for the new cultural centre and the development of the civic heart as approved in the CISP plan. Transport projects. The transport budget must be rated is a major economic and business function of council. However, it appears to be treated as a matter of fact and not given the proper attention that it needs. Do not make the mistakes of the past. Council will be aware of the original budget that was noted in the annual plan 2015-16 for a footpath that had no plan and no one knew where it was. That footpath was only included in the annual plan because one person wrote a letter and suggested it was a good idea for the right time. Council, however, failed to get all the information so that they could make a judgment back in 2015-16, and it is now being built, but in my opinion at the wrong time for the wrong reason. I also understand that the letter supporting this footpath cannot be found on any TDC file, nor was there any submission made as part of the long-term plan for proper public consultation and debate. I have noted 7 items from the transport budget that I would like Council to take a special note of, please. It is about what is proposed and what is missing about those proposals. Council needs more information from staff before making a decision. Some obvious existing safety issues have been put aside and less urgent projects
Thank you, Councillor Rankin. All right, Alan.
We're all in for a challenging couple of days. When the draft LTP was done, we started with year 1 with a rates increase of 3.4 and the financial strategy showed 3.5. We are quite a dynamic organisation such that things are now, even today, different to when we did the long-term plan. What we need to consider though is there's a lot of requests that are as part of these submissions. The first point is whether we say yes or no, and the second point is then when do we allow that to actually happen. On the positive side, we're going to finish the year with more cash than we thought we would have, so therefore we will earn more interest income next year than we have in the long-term plan, so that helps balance out things a little bit. Also, with the amount of growth going, we're actually currently revisiting the growth numbers for the rateable properties, so there's potential for some income in that regard. However, based on what we're looking at, there is a strong chance that we will be breaching the financial strategy in year one. As such, we can do that, provided that we have good reason to do it. And for example, in the draft LTP, we did not allow for the master plan for the cultural centre. So all I'm flagging is that it's going to be a challenging couple of days for all of us. And yeah. Oh, by the way, what we will do, just to assist, is at the end of today, for the start of tomorrow, we will have an updated figure for you as to where you are as far as the potential rate increase. So staff are working on those aspects at the current point of time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. On reading the additional 400 odd pages yesterday in the deliberations report, I have some concerns about how physically possible it is to do what the LTP has in it. When you look at the transport strategy, the review of the district plan, the sport and rec strategy, all of it, I just don't see how it's physically possible for council to do what the plan is. It's just, unless you're going to double the staff and go 24/7, and I also just wonder if we just need to just like pull on the reins a bit and think, right, let's get the transport strategy done and then look at what we need to do as far as traffic lights and roundabouts are done, because it just seems to me it's a strategy. So shouldn't we have a strategy in place before we go and make all these physical changes? So is there a way of just slowing things down a bit but bringing some policy work forward so that then it does free up a bit? Because I just don't know, like I look at Nick and I think, oh my god, he's got all these kids and he's got like all this policy work to do, and the team, and I just don't think it's physically possible, and I think we're going to end up breaking promises.
I think that's a fair comment, and also we need to take into account the ability of the marketplace to meet our demands. And there are, as we go through it, some of the capital works that are in the long-term plan that we might have additional information about now that means that that can also be rescheduled. But yes, it's a challenge because we're not going to hit 100% of this year's capital works, let alone. Yeah, well, at the moment, as at the end of April, we'd achieved 44%, but we're still budgeting for 83%.
you want to do a piece of work, that's fine, but my challenge back to you all the way through these 2 days will be it's not just about that capital piece of work. You also have to provide me with the operational money to provide the staff to do it. So the example would be there were really good submissions from, just as an example, the cycling club for the velodrome. It might be a $400,000 piece of work that's really easy and constrained, and personally I think it's something that we need to do, but it doesn't happen by itself. You need someone to be able to spec it, tender it, manage it when it goes out. So that might be 10 or 12 weeks worth of work for someone. In itself, that's not a problem when you've got a staff of 300, but when you add that with another project or two, all of a sudden you've got a full-time role sitting there, which we can't just keep accumulating within. So that will be something that we keep challenging you on. The second bit of work, though, is we've had a whole lot of people come in and essentially asking for a handout. That stuff it's in a roundabout way the opposite to where it should be. That stuff is really easy because that's just writing a cheque. So you think of that slightly different.
Just in addition to that, I reread the economic strengthening strategy and the Bay of Plenty economic strategy, and we've done the Turangi economic development strategy. We've got all this work that we've invested in, and it all tells us what we need to do. And I just think, why can't we just concentrate on that? Because when you look at the long-term plan, it doesn't talk about a Waireki master plan. It doesn't talk about all this sort of stuff. So it's almost like you've got the LTP plus all this other stuff. So I just think we just need to slow down.
So I mean,
we all want to do everything for everyone, but we can't.
So I think that this is a really good conversation, and for you to keep in mind as we go through the 2 days. And it's as we go through each of the groups of activity areas, these are the questions that you need to ask yourself. And absolutely, you're right. I think if we start, and the plan today is to start with some of those key infrastructure areas, and a lot of those are driven by things that we have to do. If you take water and wastewater as an example, yes, there's some decisions that you get to make within that. How do you do it? But we have to provide fresh drinking water, and we have to take away wastewater. So they're quite easy decisions, and I think once we've done that, that'll start to impact on some of those other more discretionary things, which are, to be fair, what the community cares about, right? That's the things that makes a community great or good. So.
Slow down on that big stuff, get some strategies and policies in place. If communities can win, like cut from shake tails and cases and, do the visual stuff that people then
Councillor Rankin?
I think it's the appropriate time to remind us that we need to refer back to our vision statement when we're making these decisions, because we've gone out to the community and said this is our vision and we're going to achieve it by this date. We've got to look at everything we do, and I'm not talking about the things we have to do, but the things we choose to do, and make sure that it actually is going to achieve that vision, because we're going to look really stupid in 2022 if we don't do it. So some of those big things that are on the agenda are really important to achieving that vision. I'm not disagreeing with you saying getting the small things, but we have to have a plan to make those big things happen, but we've actually made a lot of progress in that. But we have to take very seriously the vision we've all committed to.
Yep. All right, thanks, Alan. Okay, Adley, program for today.
Just quickly before we get into the program, following on from Mr. Hoadley's submission, we also received an additional piece of information from Mr. Graham Chisholm, who has submitted number 39. It's really just backing up the points he's made in his submission already, but we didn't get it until late last week. He only actually delivered it last week. So if you're happy for me to just circulate that to you now, and then it's related to the improving traffic flow through Taupo CBD. So we won't actually be addressing that until tomorrow, so I can circulate this to you as a hard copy now. You can have a look at it, and it can inform your decision making for tomorrow.
Thank you.
If you're happy to receive that.
Councillor Boddy?
Just got a question in regards to one of the issues is regards to a reservoir on the Acacia Bay side, Nukahau. There's two different figures given. One figure states that it's an investment of 4.6 million. Turn the page over, the project cost is 5.8. I'm just querying why there's that difference.
Is that contained within the deliberations report?
Well, it's one of the ones I printed off in regards to work within the water supply side of our long-term plan.
Okay. Well, I suppose we're going to kick into water first. once we get into the LTP deliberations, so we can address that question then. But before we do, is deliberations on the draft waste management and minimisation plan. So we'll conclude that with Brent and then get into the LTP deliberations following that.
All right. That one there. Morning, Brent.
Good morning, Your Worship and Councillors. How are we all this morning? Hopefully good. So we got reasonable feedback from our waste minimisation plan. The majority of people were very supportive, which is great. Bit of a groundswell of feedback from me and the community about the things that we want to achieve. So I'll take the agenda item as read and hop through to discussion. There's a resolution at the back to adopt for consultation the document unamended or amended.
Only because we're talking about waste minimisation, I'll bring it up now. But when we just little things like when we were consulting on these documents, like outside the customer services centre, and we're all there for a couple of hours, there was nowhere to put plastic bottles, except for into a bin that's all mixed waste. So how can we show better leadership in that space? I know that there are the love Taupo bins around, but do we need to provide more?
So in the budget, there's definitely some money in the budget to increase the Love NZ bins right around the district. So that's as we get them, we slowly roll them out to the places where we think we're going to get recycling happening. So definitely there is some funding for that.
All right. So the opposing ones, was there anything of any meat there, or?
I don't think so. I think most of the well, you have a look through my responses, but I don't think that was anything there that was suggesting that we were going down the wrong route, Your Worship.
Okay, cool. All right, any other questions of Brent? Do you want us to move that recommendation now?
I'd love you to,
Yep.
sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that'd be great.
All right, there's a suggested recommendation there. Any other questions? No? That the council considers submissions to the waste and either makes amendments to the plan as follows, or makes no amendments. Makes no amendments? That's the preferred option. Okay, do I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Park, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Thanks, Brent.
Thank you.
Well done. Yeah. That's it. Meeting. All right, Adley, what's next?
So now we're jumping into the LTP deliberations. So on Diligent, we're on page 2205, which is water. The agenda page is 438, I believe. You're talking in terms of the actual agenda, because there's the two different page numbers, which is slightly complicated, but...
Right. We've got the right one. Golf club first. How are we going to work this?
Well, I suppose there are some key themes that have come through in each one of these category areas. So I think probably what we can do is we can jump to the main points, but then I think it's probably there is still value in going through each of the submissions just to make sure that we've covered everything off. So in terms of water, the key points that came out were Taupo Golf Club water for irrigation, a funding request by the Waihi and Marae Trust, and also reticulation of 5 Mile Bay water. So I think on that we can address the Taupo Golf Club request first, if that's your preference.
Okay. So the golf club that we've done for the last 3 years, seeking a further term.
Correct. Yep, cool. They are.
Right, what do the councillors feel about that?
Just through the chair, when we respond to them, can we maybe suggest looking at, like, just follow the next submission talks about rainwater harvesting being identified. Can we not suggest to them that they start looking at other measures, or perhaps just put some responsibility back on them to have a look at other ways they might be able to sustain themselves?
The point they made was that because of the high conditions over the last 3 years, they've used not much of the allocation. Is that correct? They've underspent quite a considerable amount, so which is obviously good for us. But as you know, it's a major player in town. A huge economic impact. So the accommodators and what have you.
They said in their submission they say free golf to under 13, but they actually stated under 16. So if we can just
They were happy to increase it to
to
under 16.
clarify that, because if you just read the submission and you weren't at the hearing, then you wouldn't know that.
Okay, is everyone happy to continue that? Yeah. All right. The next one, Adam?
Okay, so the next point that comes up within the submissions is around 5 Mile Bay being connected to the Taupo water supply. And the staff response is that at this stage it's due to be connected in years 2020 and 2021. So it's, I suppose, a decision of council as to whether that remains.
Obviously, Waitanui have been going by then well and truly, and any flaws in the system, whatever, will be ironed out by then. I think it's a good time, 2021.
Yeah, through Chair, to get back to the delivery question, yeah, so we believe that we've scheduled all of these, that it is achievable in 2021.
Just to raise the question with the comments made by Alan at the start of this meeting, is this something we say yes to, but may have to change our thoughts when we get to the end of the discussions? Is it something that can be put out for another 2 years or 3 years?
Through the chair, there's a couple of issues here. One is the decision that will need to be made on rates for emissions in respect of this particular scheme, because what you're actually doing is creating availability from a water scheme where that scheme has not previously existed. And remember, we have our rules about availability to connect being half the water rate. So it's not just simply the ability to connect. So that's why we're suggesting that it's pushed out to 2021 for yes, the capital works to connect, but also the discussion that needs to be held around rates for emissions, and whether we have one rule for 5 Mile Bay and a different rule for Whoriwaka, for example. So it's not just a simple connect the water. Sorry? No.
Not necessarily a full emission like Waitanui. Yeah. Councillor Park?
Also, when we go back to the, bullet, I think a few of them are like, we did just put a pipe right past our 5 Mile Bay. Explain to them that the funding, like the water pipe to Waitahanui, was actually a particular project because of the Ministry of Health funding. So we just explain, communicate to them about why it happened that way, rather than that it's not just the pipe.
So through the chair, that's the purpose of today, I understand, is to see what you want as part of that staff response. We can add another sentence in there or two around that, point them in the right direction on the website, or somewhere else where they can seek further information around that. Yeah, yeah, that's good. And so, following on from the other questions, sorry. So through the chair, obviously everything that we do will have to fit in with the drinking water standards. So obviously it's coming through the Taupo plant, so that's all compliant. So anything we do in that space will be definitely drinking water compliant. Yeah. Why would they pay a fee before then? No.
Physical works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Ed?
So comfortable with that remaining
Yes.
as is? Okay.
Yep. I will add.
And we'll add a response in around Waitahanui.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next point is from the Waihi Marae Trust. Dylan or someone else wants to speak to that request?
What page is that, mate?
So page 2208 is the staff response.
I'll speak to it because it's a water issue rather than a sewer issue. We've got a community there that has some funding from the Ministry of Health.
Bryce? Sorry, Dennis.
Yes, through the Chair, Your Worship. In their submission, they identified a shortfall of 1.5 million.
Right.
And did they not, on a question, said they were going to look for further subsidy? Was that, am I right?
Yes, in their submission, they identified that they had 471 from the Ministry of Health for drinking water. They had applied for was it a lotto grant, and that had to be waived because they weren't in a position to take it up, so they would be going back to them to seek further funding. So the total shortfall they've currently got for water and wastewater reticulation is that 1.5.
Through the Chair, I imagine that Minister of Health offer expires at a certain time, as a finite date.
It has a number of expiry dates, and they've been working with them to try and get that extension.
Okay, councillors. Well, they're all rateable properties.
I'd have to assume so, yes,
correct?
without looking at them, yes.
But
I'd have to check.
but it's got a dwelling on it. You still pay rates. Just trying to think back to Councillor King. I'm not too sure was here, but when we moved the original resolution with Waihi, it was moved. It was just taken over the pipes. Was it once they're done? Sorry, just to show you again. Some of it is, yeah.
When it was put last time,
Yeah.
they had the ministry subsidy and it was just for the water, and to get the ministry subsidy we needed to accept the maintenance and the looking after the pipes once they were in the ground. The wastewater wasn't part of that. Now the wastewater is part of it, and in my mind that we need to look at the wastewater because of the proximity to the lake and what it can do within the lake, and also their water supply is not secure. They haven't got a secure water supply. It comes from the top by the waterfall, and the way it comes down is all very shaky. It's not sustainable. So they need sustainable water, and we also need to make sure that their wastewater is not going near the lake, and that's my view.
Somewhat changed, isn't it?
Yep. They now have struggled to get the funding from other options, so they can start asking a review, saying, can you treat us like we would any other community in the district? And
were to go ahead and do this, would there need to be some sort of cultural assessment done as well? Because I mean, if you're going to dig up land in an area of significance to iwi, then surely there'd have to be other works done to make sure that you're not disturbing anything.
So through the chair, that's something that we do on any construction project, anywhere where we're digging through the ground.
Right.
Yeah, sorry, just a question. Just
Yes, Councillor Truman.
yeah. So with Mutuapa,
Yeah.
with theirs, like they chose not to connect. I'm just thinking if we do this for Waihi, what about those residents that wanted it there as well? That's something that we just need to bear in mind too. And then how many houses are approximately there? I can't remember. No, in Mutuapa. Yeah. Because of the cost, and I'm just thinking, do Waihi know the cost? Yeah, because I was just thinking with Waihi, like, if we put this through, are they aware of what the costs will be? Like, we haven't done any of that consultation work, and do we need to be looking at them in the same way that we looked at Waitahanui, as far as, you know, we haven't done that work yet?
Well, we can always put conditions on this.
Because I'm for them having good water, and you know, I'm for all that, but I'm just thinking, are we doing this when we haven't actually consulted with them? That's my only worry.
Sorry Kirsty, but I was on the opinion, I thought that when we looked at this last time and did say that we would take over the pipes, that consultation had gone through there, that they were aware that there was a cost.
It is a significant village in the district. It's the home of the Paramount Chief. It's a wonderful little historic village, and it's, you know, the Merry Battalion assembled there straight after the war and things like that, you know, so it's I think we should do this for all the right reasons, but I do agree that perhaps could be in a couple of years' time, the timing, yeah. So it's a similar formula, yeah. It's the same subsidies here. Yeah. And I think that the submitter said that Peter said that he was going away to try all other avenues as well. So.
So through the chair, so the water isn't district-wide at the moment. No, isn't. So that's a discussion that we'll be bringing to you to have on water funding. But the wastewater is district-wide funded currently.
So the people that will pay for this are from Turingi, Roy Hotel, is that one scheme? No, different. So just Turing? Because it's coming from Turing. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Body?
Mr. Chairman, just indulge me for a minute. You took mention of motor rope. I was down at the marina yesterday. There's no system in the marina that I could see that circulates the water, and the water's awfully brown, and that comes in and out of the lake. So I'm just wondering whether that needs to be queried with Internal Affairs. At Kinloch they do have that system that circulates the water, but we worry about the quality of the water in the lake. I don't believe that that marina is serving us very well at the moment.
It's supposed to be. I'm sure it's part of it. Yeah. Where's Philip King?
Through the chair. So just following from Barry, just what Gareth saying, well, presumably my understanding would be looking for 1.5 million shortfall, isn't it? So if we either are we either going to effectively, for example, underwrite it in the hope, or perhaps a scenario they actually fund some funding from other sources, plus and also putting the 1.5 in the long-term plan, whether it's year 4, is going to at least, is that going to secure the Minister of Health subsidy as well, or will it have to be?
Yeah, no, I don't think those subsidies exist anymore.
They've got one. They've got one currently.
Just Kevin, just confirming those subsidies all available for Waihi or Dennis. Sorry.
And as I said, they have been getting extensions. I just wouldn't be able to comment about how long those extensions can go for.
Yeah.
During Peter's submission, he said that as long as they could see that things were progressing, the subsidy would be still there.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so what's the level of comfort around the council? Was, do we say $1 million or? Yeah. Were you born there, Tongwe? Were you born there? Oh. Okay, no problems. Thanks, Councillor Kingi. Right, so Maggie?
I'd like to see that maybe in year 4 we signal the 1.5.
Yes.
And if they know that that's there, then they're more likely to be able to get the lotto funding, because lotto funding only lasts a year, so they will know that that is a goal they can have. And so if they need the whole 1.5, it's there, but if they don't, we will be there to help.
And there's a possibility of coming back to us, say if they only need 700, they come back to us a bit earlier if they want to. Yep.
Through Joe, always support Councillor Stewart's observation.
Okay, everyone else supportive? Could I have a show of hands, please?
I think it's really important that we get the
Yeah, well, that will give us a bit of time too. Yeah. Cool. Okay, thanks, Kev. Next one. I think, yeah.
We'd have to look at Mr. Mahina, I think.
Alan hasn't had a commitment, has he? He's still alive. He's looking up Danny Lee's result. How's he going? No good? 4th, oh God. Sorry, Kev. 6.7%, right? Right, what's next, Hadley? Toho Ridge, where's that? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Dennis.
Through the chair, this is lines up with an agreement we have with Whareawaka East around timing of the development.
Okay. The developers paying anyway, aren't they?
Just one further thing through the chair. We're working on a 6-monthly basis with Whareawaka East about timing of further development. This reservoir would supply the medium zone, which is beyond what they're currently developing. So if there's any change in the progress of the development, then there would be an extension of time sought.
What is the rising main anyway? Is that a pipe? What is the rising main?
Yeah, it's a big pipe.
Big pipe.
Big pipe.
Yep.
So it's not a new reservoir.
There is a reservoir involved in there as well, but further on at a later stage.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Give Hadley next.
If we jump to 2209, submission point number 252.9 at the bottom, is a request there from the MPRG for an extension of water at Whakamaru. Sorry, bottom of page 2209. Submission point 252.9.
So, Mr. Chairman, to clarify, that's the end at Whakamaru of Forest Road, isn't it? Yeah. Do a circle. Yeah.
Sorry everyone, just a reminder too, we are actually recording live, so just if you can turn your mics off and on as we go through. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry. Yep. What's the cost here, sorry?
A couple of $100K, Your Worship. That's an estimate, it's not based on too much.
Okay.
This has been on the request line for a long time now.
Well, at the moment,
I think
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
the third time. Yeah.
they're paying $1,162, I think, for the coming year. What impost does that put on them? I mean, are we going to get objections that they don't want to fund it?
I think one person that I saw went to connect and it was going to be 20-something grand. I mean, it was like a ridiculous amount. Yeah, so, but if the ring main was there, then it wouldn't cost that.
I think it's probably one of those things, we talked about the water strategy earlier, and it's probably one of those ones that, again, that water strategy needs to needs to wait for that water strategy to catch up, and that it really is going to be about that funding. If you are making people fund, this is going to be an issue which you have over and over again. If you're trying to make people fund, but these small schemes, their own upgrades, they're simply not going to be able to afford to do it, and so you need to have those discussions and need the information to do that around what are the other funding options available to you. We're doing that piece of work and are looking at the water strategy leading into probably a long-term plan amendment, depending on where your decisions go with the building long-term plan amendment into early next year. So it's, you know, that those decisions will come. So I'd say, again, if you're of a mind to do anything on here, then put it out a wee bit, with a view of that strategy, making those decisions before you actually start to impose costs on people. Up to you.
See, I don't think we can make one decision on Waihi and then completely flip-flop on a smaller community like this as well. If we're going to say we need to develop the water strategy to sort the funding streams, then let's be consistent at least with the way we're dealing with these different communities in the interim.
I mean, drinking water is a major infrastructure in I think we've just probably got to get a strategy right. We've got to fight the fight on some of these things.
So I can confirm year 4 and the dollar value. Happy with 200k. Yeah.
I think whatever Dennis has said that we need, put it into year 4, and then we can play with it after the strategy.
Sorry, so we're on page 2211. So, 2212, apologies. And it's the Kinloch representative group making some comments around the water treatment plant in Kinloch. Just 2212, sorry, submission 336. So that there's no actual decision to be made there, it's more just for noting. So that concludes all the key points for water. So the next well, that set of water submissions. The next one to turn to is the upgrading of Acacia Bay's water supply, which is on page 2087.
Headley, just a point, when you go back to the Kinloch one on 2212, can you just put some timings, because there were some timings in the LTP on that in the response back, because then it'll help just put some dates in, please.
So I think obviously the first submitted there, number 2, so you'll see the staff response is obviously uniform across all of these, based on the preferred option that was included in the consultation document. 2/3 of submitters were in favour of the preferred option to connect Acacia Bay and Marpra Road back to Taupo water treatment plant.
Acacia Bay residents have really thought about the fact that they're getting up with fluoridated water, but also from a emergency management perspective, is this the most resilient solution for Acacia Bay? Like, would they not be better, and would we not be better to future-proof Acacia Bay, Marpra, all out that way for future growth?
So through the chair, I think the key message is the Acacia Bay plant is quite small and only feeds a relatively small proportion to relative to Taupo. But by connecting to the Taupo scheme, it gets current drinking water standard compliance a lot more rigorous in that stage. Because of the plant that we've got there, it's got overall lower capital costs, OPEX cost, working our way through. There's already 24-hour plus storage over in Acacia Bay in the reservoir there. There's more reservoirs planned for the north of the river and the LTP, so there's future resilience through there. There's currently 2 pipelines across the river, one attached to the bridge and one under the river. And we can also we need to look at retaining, like we did Rainbow Point for emergencies, which still have a ability to take water from the existing pump station. If we wanted to keep that there, you'd have to be bore water notice, but there's a lot of resilience there as well. The only really benefits for a separate plant over there, it's not relying on those pipelines, but with extra storage, existing storage, extra storage planned, plus the other stuff there, it kind of makes sense resilient wise to bring it back into town.
Sorry, and just also around the Taupo plant, as far as the $1 million membranes and the maximum capacity of function and all of that, is there a lot of space for this? Like, are we not going to be, and once we connect 5 Mile Bay and everything, like, is it going to be able to fully function servicing all those properties?
Through which I understand, yes, we will do. What we have got is we've got to do it in 5 MLDs, so megalitres per day. You have to do it in banks for that. All it means is we're bringing that a little bit forward by adding this one too, and if we needed to do 5 Mile Bay, it might mean we bring the next one forward, if so, to meet those requirements. So there's plenty of storage in there. This is a discussion that we want to have though through the water strategy, and also a conversation to do with our water allocation. I'll just put it out there, we're unlikely to be able to maintain taking water as we do now in the future. Just untethered. Yeah.
Through the chair. Yeah, thank you. Just, Councillor Pate raises an interesting point regarding the, without prejudice, with my view on fluoridating water or not, and there's 2/3 of submitters were supporting reconnecting, so the information should go out to say that water will be fluoridated. And also I do understand, as they're going through a reading in Parliament, that the fluoridating will be taken out of our hands, and the Minister of Health or Department of Health will make that decision. So
it will be. It's currently sitting, I think, about number 13 on the order paper, so I'm told that's not going to be any time soon, but that's certainly the incentive, and it was both. It was by what do they call it? Bilateral. Both parties agreed with it when they put that through.
Mr. Chairman. Yep. Thank you. This is very, very unusual. I'm going to agree with Councillor Park's comments. In regards of whether there's a plant over there or not, we've got before us information. The first one is that a reservoir on Pohipi Road for 4.6 million, and then the increase of the water from the Taupo plant from 25 million litres a day to 30 million litres a day at 1.75 million. Now the plant, to build a plant in Acacia Bay, was going to be 6.2 million. You take off your 1.7, you get down to 5.4. And I remember in this council chamber a couple of months ago, a comment was made about the excellent job a previous council did to get our wastewater going out to Rakaneri Road rather than where it used to be. And I think we've got the unique ability now to guarantee the supply for that side of the river, forget the 2 pipes that are already going, for the future, because with the eastern development out here, the going into 5 Mile Bay, and then a few years down the track we're going to go from 30 million to 35 million, another 1.7 or 2 million. Why don't we just grapple and put the plant there? I'm not sure the size of reservoir that would be needed, but all of the Nuka side of the river could be on this plant, and that is guaranteeing supply. So at this stage I will not be voting when it comes to the vote in regards of connecting to Taupo. I believe we should have a standalone plant on that side of the river.
Through the chair.
Want to run the water back from Acacia Bay to Nuka.
So sorry, through the chair, just for a bit of clarification on that, the prices that are in there is to service Mapara Road and Acacia Bay alone. The treatment plant that was compared there was not to service all of Nukaha, which would be considerably more.
Through the chair. To take on Councillor Body's point, I guess, well, I imagine, I would believe that option 2, the drive of submissions, if we go to option 1, they'll be doubling their rates, the water rate, targeted rate, so it has to be sort of factored in as well.
Could I just comment on the comment that's been made? If that side of the river was connected, all of it to the Acacia Bay plant, you would have the financial ability to have a bigger plant, because those on that side of the river, as they're doing now, would be paying their $600 or $700, whatever it is. But you'd have that whole Nukahoe area right as far as Nukahoe goes, and even at some stage even go to where Councillor Williamson lives, because that's not secure because the pipe goes across the bridge. I think we've got to be a little bit forward thinking, not for today, but for the future.
Just a question about probably the resource consent for water tank from Lake Terrace. Because that'll have to be increased, won't it, if it's all coming from one source. Are we confident about Environment Waikato issuing a resource consent for additional water tank?
So, through the Chair, very timely question because we've had a letter from Waikato Regional Council asking us about the Rainbow Point one, which is a separate supply. But that's a discussion that we'll be having with them over the next couple of months, quite in detail. And we'll be looking about how we take the water, whether we continue with individual water takes or we look at one for like Taupo Bay or even the lake as a whole, and divvy it up from there for all of our water supplies. But it's something that we're certainly in discussion with them for. We do have, there are some water demands further downstream that we need to be aware of, and so therefore they're trying to tighten up on what we've got here at the moment. So,
bottom line is you're not increasing your overall take, it's just about whether it's coming from Acacia Bay or from here. So, yeah.
But it still affects the resource consent
for here, but it's coming from the same reservoir being the lake.
Yeah. So through the Chair, it affects the resource consent as it is now, but that may not be how we go in the future.
Could I now raise that question in regards of the reservoir at Pohupi Road, the difference in the two figures, 4.6, and over the page it's 5.8. Is there, am I missing something?
I do support Councillor Body's comments and Councillor Clark, particularly regarding the possibility of secure supply across the Acacia Bay and that side of the lake. I think we have got to look to the future, and I do favour it. But I'd just like to see whether we can have a little bit more detail in the costing, the total costing, to be a little bit more clearer on our decision making. Because I think this is a really important decision that we've got to make. So I'd probably like to leave this on the table for a little bit more in-depth discussion.
So through the Chair, I see the question is around resilience. That's something that our team look at every time we make decisions around this. As I've said before, I'm not going to go through them again, but those are the reasons that they were comfortable with the resilience question coming from town. This is, so from an engineering point of view, there's no extra resilience involved in doing it across here because we think we can beef up any extra pipes or do the pipe work across the Waikato River. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Stewart?
I just feel that we did look at resilience when we looked at this before it went out for consultation, and that was part of what we looked at, and we went out with our preferred option. 2/3 of the people have come back and said yes, they would like to see us connected, and I feel that we've been here, we've looked at this, we've asked what people would like, they've told us, and our engineers have said that it is resilient, it will be able to cope with what we're needing. I just feel that we need to look at what we asked people to do. They've come back with 2/3 saying yes, please do it, and that's where I'm looking at it.
Yeah. Councillor Hickling's suggestion of further look at the costs. What did we actually explore? You mentioned it before. Explore the ongoing maintenance costs will be a lot less.
Through the Chair, it's just economies of scale. If you're doing everything for one plant, utilising one plant, yes, it'll be less for one plant versus two separate plants.
Have we got exactly how much do you think it'll be less?
Not off the top of my head, sorry, but I can get that over the next couple of days.
I think that's what Barry's looking for, sort of thing.
No, Kevin, you just mentioned that just briefly in the proposal for a separate plant in Acacia Bay. you didn't include servicing Nukahow and that's because it's no use building a plant across there if it's not going to supply, for me anyway, Margaret Road, Nukahow and as John said, probably Rangatira Park and all that side of the town. So I suppose that's
So
it'll be another couple of million.
So you wouldn't. I mean, that's a completely different thing and out of scope to what it was, because that side of town's already serviced by the Taupo wastewater plant, water plant. So the moment you do that, you start to unravel all of your calculations that you've made all your other decisions on with Waitanui, that the price per ratepayer for the Taupo plant starts to increase. And I'll tell you what, that you're going to start to you'll really upset the apple cart. So that's why the plant's never been proposed or thought to hook it back, and it's not just the cost of the pipe coming back, it's about removing those ratepayers from this one. It means that any other ratepayer left on the side of the river will pay a whole lot more because you're losing people who are subsidising.
I'm comfortable with the direction of travel that we connect to the water scheme here. From my perspective, the resilience questions have been answered. And also my understanding too is in terms of building something at Acacia Bay, there were some challenges about where we were going to put the darn thing because we weren't even sure we had a location that we could. And we've got this current infrastructure and it's working, so I think we should do what the submitters have come back with and connect to the scheme here in town.
What year were we going to do this in?
Can't remember. Next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Through the chair, I support Councillor Jolin's comments with regard to resilience, and also possibly even turn Councillor Park's discussion about the point about the fluoridation, etc., or the with the cost. Option one may not be actually considered. They may be able to afford it, but the majority of people probably not going to be very happy about having the rates doubled, as a targeted rate. We all make decisions. All councils make decisions. Split. Can we like it or not, and affect the rates, but I think this is the one that's got quite a significant decision.
Okay. How's the direction of travel there? So we'll just, Kevin, you can give us a guarantee that, or Dennis, that this current plant here, the membranes and all that carry on, can cope with this extra.
Through the chair, with the upgrades that are proposed, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, it can, but want to be really clear that we, as part of the water strategy, are going to be coming back talking about the need for water demand anyway. So whether or not this is connected or not, at the moment we take out of that plant and we treat a whole lot more than any other district in the country pretty much. We saw the graphs this morning, we're right up there, and so that's going to be needed to be done whether or not this is connected or not. So yes, it can cope with this demand, but we still need to put water demand management in place anyhow.
The challenge we're going to face moving forward is the water supply is overdrive and people getting access to water. So it's going to be a challenging conversation.
Councillor Rosie.
And I know everyone shudders at this, but is this not timely to actually be looking at the charging separately for water as part of this discussion? So it's more user pays.
So it's user pays at the moment, and on scheme by scheme, to be really clear what we're probably going to be looking at, and his office is suggesting to you as part of the water strategy and a subsequent LTP amendment, if you agree with that water strategy, is looking at different ways of funding, which will probably be that it goes district-wide. So everybody pays a flat fee regardless of where you live. Now there'll be winners and losers on that, and that's what we're working those figures out for you at the moment. But what is really clear at the moment is that smaller communities cannot pay to upgrade their water, and yet we all know the most important job we all do is providing water.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm suggesting.
So that'll be again part of your water strategy.
Because I'm on a scheme which is as that, and you pay for what you use, and I just think it makes sense.
So again, part of your water strategy will be that, and that meters. You don't actually get more money because at the moment we do it through your rate, so you're just collecting in a different way. But by meters means that then water demand management comes. You reduce your, particularly in the first few years, you reduce your demand because people know that they save money by turning off the tap or not watering the garden so much.
Through the chair, then considering all this water strategy work that needs to be done, does Acacia Bay need to be done next year? Can it not be pushed out?
so through Chair, needs to meet the drinking water standards, which we've committed to. Yeah. Yeah. So and the timing, just to clarify, that is year 1 is the upgrade in the local plant here, Lake Terrace, and then year 2 is the construction.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I mean, we're being very deliberate putting water at the front of your 2 days, and that again, this is the most important thing that you do. Everything else is discretionary. Drinking water is not.
I know we're not beating Mr. Chairman, but it's a pity we didn't consider what I've just suggested in Councillor Park. Just coming back to the reservoir difference in costs, we've got an answer for that one.
What you're looking at, so I can so I can at least research it.
Okay. So direction of travel is that we supply the water from Taupo, correct? Yeah. Okay. Right, Hadley, what's next?
Sorry, actually that is on 2084. Submitted point 272.12.
Request the council allocates funds to support the recommendation. Okay, so what's the engineer's suggestion here?
Through the Chair, there's currently a project underway to bypass that pond. There's no provision in the long-term plan for anything else at this stage, recognising that we need to do some further investigation work, exactly what we're going to do with the pond once we've bypassed it, and that would come forward once we've done that investigation.
Okay. Good enough answer. Councillor Stewart?
Just when I was out with the ratepayers out at Pukawa, they were under the impression that there was something in the plan that was going to do remedial work once it wasn't needed anymore, and then it was taken out. So that's what really did distress them, because it was there and then it was gone. And I don't. The fact that it might just be left as it will be is not what they would like. So is there any assurance that once it's assessed that what it is going to be a function for, then something will happen, that it won't just be left for mosquitoes and everything else to grow in, because that would not be a good look? And if that is the case, can some time frames be put round so that they have an assurity that something will change there? Thank you.
So it was in and then it was out because of the new project?
It was taken out because we didn't have any surety of exactly what we were going to do, Your Worship. And no, it won't be left as a pond full of effluent. Will be dealt with. We just need to figure out what it is we're going to do with it. I'm aware that the community has got some desires to turn it into a wetland. That's one of the options that we need to investigate. And until we've finished that investigation, we can't put a number around what it is that we're going to do.
Sorry, just adding to that then, I know the community out there are really proactive, so if there is a solution that they can be part of, then they're more than happy to be part of that solution. And I think that maybe the communication needs to be there so they actually have that understanding that something is, and they will be talking about it as as the talking is happening, not just left up in the air and then, you know, a year later when you've decided what you're going to do, talk to them. It needs to be ongoing. Thank
through
you.
the chair, we'll have to do a fair bit of conversation with the community just around the bypass work that we're going to be doing anyway. So we'll add that onto the back end of the conversation about, hey, now we're bypassing it. We've got a conversation about remediation. So
Just through the chair, do we still not need to put something in the budget though for remediating the pond, regardless of whether it's a correct figure or not? Because otherwise it's just going to come back as unbudgeted, isn't it? Or can we not do that?
Through the chair.
Councillor Jollins?
Because just to clarify, we're going to have some obligations under our consents for when we built the darn thing if we walk away from it too, aren't we?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so the good answer that you've given Dennis and Kevin, I think there, put that in there, but with no figure at the moment. We'll answer the submitters that way. Once we do this other project, we might have an outcome. Yeah. Okay, Hadley?
So we're on page 2156. This was one of the options in the consultation document around working to reduce wastewater spills. Preferred option being obviously to increase the funding towards that, and a vast majority of the submitters supported that preferred option. So just seeking confirmation.
Good. Do it. Right, next.
Page 1997, which is stormwater. The only decision required under here is around a request by Kinloch Marina around discharging of stormwater into the Kinloch Marina, and there's some staff advice there.
Is that decision staff response supported by Environment Waikato, do you know, or are they over this one, or no?
Through the chair, no, Waikato Regional Council are not aware of this response, but it's a separate process. So as far as we're concerned, in that response is basically saying they're not big catchments. They wouldn't benefit, the water quality wouldn't benefit substantially from the expense of putting those systems in place there. Certainly we have a lot of other catchments in town that are a lot bigger than that haven't got these type of quality devices in.
So we would be able to back up the assumptions and the statements we've made here with empirical data if it was challenged?
Through the chair, we don't collect that information for the marina. It's not ours to collect.
How then can we make that statement if we don't have the data?
We just work on square meterage of the existing land use within town, and those catchments are substantially bigger, talking 10, 20 times the size of the catchment here, with a lot more hydrocarbons and other things going into them because of the volumes of traffic and the use. Yeah.
Alright, so we've made some assumptions based on best practice in our knowledge.
That's through the chair. Thank you. So presumably the catchment we're talking about is just residential development. There's nothing above that. So anything that's inappropriate will be people going where people washing cars or doing stuff on the streets that going down the stormwater. So that would be the only nutrients. So it's just people's behaviour, isn't it? It could impact on anything going in there that shouldn't be going in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Could I just come back to Motoropa then? We don't do any monitoring of those marinas. Is that done by Internal Affairs, Regional Council, or who?
I'm assuming it'll be done by Internal Affairs as a consent condition for the Waikato Regional Council.
Well, can we actually ask, is it being done and what the results are? Because what I saw at Motoropa wasn't very impressive yesterday. So, and that's, we talk about our lake water, and that's an area of concern if we're not monitoring them.
Okay.
Mr. Green. could collect those, but it's not our responsibility. But you know,
No, if something was coming out of those marinas and going to the lake, I mean, we have an assumption that everything's okay, but I mean, is it? We spend all this time looking after the quality of the water in the lake, and that's just a small area.
no, don't disagree. What we'll do is we'll have a word to Waikato Regional Council, and they can answer that query for you.
All right, everyone happy with the response there? Okay, next one, Hadley.
Solid waste. There's a couple of comments in there from submitters around just changing the operations that we do, but those have been, there is staff responses in there, but those have been dealt with through the waste minimisation management plan. Unless there's any questions on any of those, we can move on. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Page 2044.
Mr. Chairman, just in staff responses, and I know these guys work very hard. I had a lot of criticism after the long-term plan. Just the comment that the submitter gets back is, council thanks the submitter for their submission. It's a very dead statement, and I know you can't go writing love letters to all our, but just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little bit more because
Yeah.
we go to the effort.
Certainly there will. I suppose the key from this information you've received today is if the submitter has just made a comment, that's all we've put in there in terms of the advice to you, but it's a two-step process. So there's what you've received today is advice to assist you with your decision making. You'll then obviously make the decisions, they'll be included in the long-term plan. We'll then respond to the submitters with the result of whatever decision council has made. So they won't necessarily receive the response that's in here. This is just simply to assist you with your decision making. So they will receive a bigger response based on whatever outcome is ultimately in the long-term plan. No, so obviously, yeah, so council's deliberating today and tomorrow. Ultimately, we'll bring back a draft long-term plan to you that then gets audited through the first couple of weeks of June. Ultimately, you then will adopt the long-term plan at the end of June. Once it's adopted and it's passed through under the Local Government Act and official and in place, we then respond to submitters to let them know what the final decision has been of council and what is contained within the long-term plan. Correct.
So it is pretty much a love letter. Yeah, they have the policy attached and everything.
So they've received an acknowledgement. So once they put their submission and they receive an acknowledgement that council has received it, that council will deliberate and make decisions, which is happening through this process. It then has to go through the audit process again, and once it's finally adopted, we can then let them know what decision is actually legally contained within the long-term plan. At this stage, we can't let them know because you're still through that decision-making process.
Through the chair.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just to be clear, we already do that when the submission's received, we acknowledge the receipt of their submission. We'll be back in touch once council has made their final decisions.
Oh, there was just through the chair, just those one liners, just basically acknowledging that the submitter is supporting the submission anyway. So yeah, it's in the first instance.
Correct. Yeah, when you see a one-liner in here, it's merely where most often the submitter has just made a statement. There's no request for any further decision. It's just merely a statement. But we will acknowledge that and let them know what ultimately ends up in the long-term plan in relation to their decision. Their submission.
Cool. Next.
Some general infrastructure related submissions. Some of these do cross over into other areas, but they're sitting under infrastructure general, which is on page 1820. The first submission in there is from the NZMCA regarding dump stations, and you can see the staff's response.
Mr. Chairman, are these dumps for the camper vans?
That's right.
So
yes.
how many have we got in this? It's 2 Mile Bay down over here at Riverside. Where are the others?
You've got to, you say, provide a number of dump sites. Two. So perhaps in the
Through the chair, they're on a camper van app or something that you can pick up and find out where the dump sites are.
so perhaps the answer
I
could be
believe
more.
I believe they're also identified through information we have around freedom camping as well. So for people accessing freedom camping information on the council website, it does show where those dump stations are.
So what you could say is there's a couple on public land, and then there's several on private land too, just in the answer before. Thank you.
Trying to provide more dump stations, and Turangi is one, as an example that the board have come and talked about over the time. These things they're really hard because some people want them in a particular location, but there's equal and as vocal number of people that don't want them in that location, so they're inevitably really hard to try and establish.
Just a quick question from me, because we haven't directly answered the question. Do the facilities meet those New Zealand standards that are quoted by the Camping Association?
Yep, we will do. We'll have a look at that, and if we do, we do. Yep.
Yeah, I just in Turangi there is a dump station at the new Waitomo petrol place there, so and that's busy, so there is a place in Turangi to be used.
All right, just below that one's Paul Dawson regarding that on the walking bridge. Has someone looked back quite a significant due to the height of vessels? I thought it was just one vessel. Two, Barbara?
Through the chair, I would like to see us, we're signalled that we're going to be talking about a transportation strategy, and Councillor Park raised some of these points at the very beginning of the day. There are a whole lot of things that we need to talk about transportation, whether it's cycling, walking, parking, how everyone moves around. So I would rather not dismiss this one and just say that we'll review it when we look at our transportation strategy, because I think we shouldn't just knock it out of the park.
Just through the chair, I think like the water strategy, transportation and the transport strategy is just as important.
Yep. Safety as well. Yeah. Good idea. Thank you. Because I think if you're just talking about a couple of vessels, they'll just say, "We'll make it higher." Yeah. So, so I think refer to the strategy, which is 2028, is it? Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
well, that's good.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Right. Okay. What's the next one, Heather?
So if you move through to page 1822, submitted number 302.7, there's a request there for council to increase the budget for works in the CBD.
Who's that from? Oh, Town Centre.
Correct. Yep, Town Centre Taupo.
So what are we CBD at the moment spending?
Approximately 4 million over the life of this LTP already budgeted. What's that, sorry?
400.
£400,000 a year. What we end up often having to do is spread the intersection over 2 years. So take the most recent one was the Ruapehu Street, Ruapehu Street, Colonel Roberts Reserve, and that was spread over 2 financial years to fund it. Worked well. No problem with that. I guess the request from Town Centre is can we have more to do more, and so totally up to you.
Just and just through the chair, I mean we've got this master plan work going on, so I just don't see if there's any point in doing something like putting in more when we don't know what that's going to look like.
Probably just used to one section done every couple of years or the other way.
The next one which we bring into your May council meeting is for Ruapehu Parahapi Street. So that'll be the next one that we're bringing to you a couple of weeks' time.
Yep. Right, sorry, Dan. Right, okay, so happy with that response there? Next one, Eddles?
So the next point was raised by Tūwharetoa Māori Trust Board on page, it jumps from 1822 to 1823, and it's relating to unlicensed structures located on their property, and staff responses to work with them over the next 3 years.
To clarify, when we're talking about unlicensed structures, are we talking about things like our water treatment plant?
No, so it's water intakes and stormwater discharge pipes mainly. So the government in its wisdom, and this is something that is frustrating, the government in its wisdom when it signed the late bid over to Tūwharetoa, in the settlement it provided for all Crown structures, and it provided for all private structures. It specifically excluded council structures. Why? Don't know, but it did. And so, in theory, there's our structures, well, not in theory, in practice, our structures are unconsented sitting on a piece of private land. So the discussion has always been, to date, council, you need to get an easement. Our response back has always been, well, we're not rating the lake currently as a commercial piece of land. And so it's been a bit of a stalemate. We're always going to be on the losing side of that battle because our ability to rate is based on the Rating Act, and so we can only get what we can get. Tūwharetoa have very limited requirements around how we come to an agreement in a negotiation. So to date it's been a gentleman's agreement just to leave it in the background, but it's one that perennially comes up that we need to address. I think we do need to address it because the important bit for me is the environmental issues. So you take some of our stormwater discharge points and some of them do need some work. So it's something that we probably do need to address over time with some reasonableness on both sides.
How many do you reckon there are? Can't we be part of the Crown? Part of the Crown? A junior version of the Crown? All right. Okay, we'll look at that in the next 3 years.
3 years, yep. Next one, Hadley.
The next item is transport. Now, these are generally requests that weren't related to the Northern Access discussion. You may see that there are a couple in there that people just made comments that didn't fit in the first part, but of these, in terms of decisions, the first one is a request for a bike path connecting Taupo and Kinloch. We're on page 2133, and I'll just find for transport generally, and that's submitter number 35 at the bottom of page 2133. under transport strategy. Okay. Possibly the similar for the next one was a request to seal the cycleway adjacent or alongside the ETA. Sorry, I'm just trying to locate that now. Correct, 2134.
So we mentioned that in the report. We've done a lot of work on it.
So through the chair, does it meet some criteria around the NZTA with safety, with that subsidy, with the NZTA? Is it a requirement NZTA to fund it 52% whatever it is for as a safety aspect? Or are you negotiating with them?
Through the chair, no, there is no requirement from NZTA to seal it, and we're always looking for opportunities for that with NZTA, but I wouldn't be hopeful with this one.
And through the chair, like with the government policy statement on transport, the minister has, or associate minister has brought forward the item of safety, but also that they're going to look at funding footpaths along with roads for the first time, so we probably just need to wait and see what that looks like.
All right.
Few requests throughout those submissions around extensions for sealing in the rural area. I'll just find one of those examples.
Oh, he's not here, is he? No. Sorry, Councillor Truman.
Correct.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Bloody good, this legit, eh?
Sorry, I'm just trying to look at the page.
Your Worship, while Hadley's busy looking for the submission, we spend about 380k a year on seal extension currently. To see a completion of the seal extension program that Council embarked on back in about 2007 would need about another 3.6 million. Over and above what's currently identified in the draft long-term plan. Yeah, yeah.
So you forecast in this draft one,
within the current draft plan, we have 400,000 a year for the first 6 years of the plan. There would require another 3.6 to see the program completed. That's not every road sealed, that's just those roads that need sealing. There is obviously a number of roads out there that wouldn't need sealing purely based on use.
how many Ks does 400k give you?
A couple of K. It's very dependent on where the road is, how close resource like pumice is, what the topography is, so it does vary considerably.
And how many submissions have we had that wanted an increase?
It's in the vicinity of 3 or 4.
So could the extra funding come from the forests that are coming out of Te Rānga? Because that's what they were always promised, was that those forests were going to go towards rural roading, and that's why they always have the issue with...
So the money from the forest, the money from the forest obviously is part of your income stream, so that's really built into the plan. So it's really about this is the expenditure side of the equation, with the exception that I'd say that road in particular, is it
Spencer Road.
Spencer Road, I was going to say Parker Road. Spencer Road, we have, and we're in discussions with the neighbours at the moment, we're undertaking that, we'll widen it to make it safe now, pre-harvesting, where it needs to be, if it needs to be widened, and where it needs to be. But post-harvesting, then absolutely that road will be put right, and that whether that includes sealing, it probably will. But that's a post-harvest, fix up the mess that we've made situation rather than a rural reseal, annual reseal situation. But that's that one road rather than any others.
Spencer Road is
Yeah.
in there. What the request from Waterwork? Have we got that?
Just have a look.
Liz?
Tauranga Settlers and that was it. Spencer Road, yeah. And so our transportation people were looking at where we need to widen it to help for the sealing. So when I say widen, still unsealed, just widen it to allow the logging trucks to pass safely. Post logging, then we'll look at what needs to be done to bring that road up to standard.
Mediation, yeah.
Okay. So it'd be fair to say that the first 400k next year will be spent on Spencer Road, yes? Or you, not the main
Extra.
Again, the Spencer Road is specific to the harvesting, so that's as a forest owner, the council's doing that.
Okay, so
The $400,000 a year is part of your normal rural upset.
okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what the ballpark figure of doing that job is? Yeah. The initial widening.
Mm.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, but to reply to a submission. Yeah. Okay. Right. Cool.
Can you clarify when the end is? Because I have no idea when that comes. I just think it's always good to try and get people an idea of when. 3 years. So you're managing expectations.
I think the question is today is are we still comfortable with the 400 gram figure going forward?
Just through the chair, this submitter and Mark Seymour also talked about the Tauranga Forest Road intersection, about widening and lighting. Were there going to be any discussions with Medaka, or are there any plans to have a look at this intersection?
And through the chair, yes, there is plans to look at that intersection, and we are working with Miraka whenever they propose an extension to see what needs to be done to accommodate that.
Yeah, talking to Miraka, they were about to lodge an application for resource consent to extend the storage area, so I presume that'll be not far away.
We've already been having some of those discussions,
Great.
Your Worship.
Yeah, cool. Lovely. So back to the question. 400k seems to have been a reasonably comfortable figure in the last few years.
Jim, could I ask the 400k, which has been there for a number of years, what has the cost of the ceiling gone up by? Has it been 1 or 2%, or has it stayed the same? So are we actually doing less for that money?
The costs have increased undoubtedly, but it's difficult to quantify what the general cost has gone up by, purely because, for instance, the seal extension on Tahuru Road, which is largely flat, very few curves in it, is far easier and far cheaper to build, also because it's got a pumice pit that's quite close to some of the other areas that we've just completed out on Western Bays, because there's a longer cart, more vertical and horizontal bends, and it's extremely difficult to work out what the increase is, because they're different, almost different beasts.
So are we looking at that? So we're not keeping up with inflation because it hasn't increased? It did decrease when I first started.
This has been taken
from 600,000 something to, it did decrease. So they've already taken it. So I'm just saying we're not keeping up with inflation. So do we need to look at that? But in saying in this round, if we're doing the extra work with that Spencer Road and also with Forest Road, like that's, you know, that is a bit of an increase. But in the future, we will need to look at that.
All right.
Yeah, transport. corporate strategy.
400, or do we make it 450?
Oh, yeah, I'm with the Mayor, 450.
Through the chair, you could consider it in years 2 or 3 an increase, but you can't afford it in year 1.
Yeah. First year 400. I think it is one of the things that the farmers bail you up about. You know, like it's the only physical thing they actually do see. You know, they don't. You know, it's an old argument, I know, but why not? There is a big rate collect out in the rural area, and why not show them a bit of love in year 2, 3?
Through the chair, just also point out what I mentioned earlier, that the current 400k finishes in year 6.
Mm-hmm.
That's spread to year 10 from year 7.
So 400 between now and year 6.
Yeah.
Why don't you just stick the eye to us?
That'll be about it, wouldn't it? Anyway, yeah, so it's already. Okay, so.
Year 1, 400, so status
quo. Yeah.
Year 2, 400. Is that right? Status quo?
Yeah.
So I was saying 450 before.
No, 450 kicks in year 5.
Year 5.
Yeah. Too far away? Or year 3 then? No, it's just, you know, it's a little.
Okay, so year 1 is 400, year 2 is what?
400?
500.
Show hands for 450, show hands for 400.
500?
Alan, looking at Alan here, when will it make the big dip? You know, like further out the better for you, or?
Well, anything's better further out, but year 2
Yeah.
But we'll include that what Alan said earlier, whatever you decide today, tomorrow we'll come back with the
Okay. So, alright, well, year 1, 400, year 2, kick it in there. 5. Oh, geez, you're increasing it more.
Yeah, but I'd like to know if we are going to
That's
increase the budget, how much more kilometres that's going to give us before we receive any budget. Otherwise, it's paying.
Well, as Dennis has explained about 7 times, it all depends on topography and all that sort of, yeah. Yeah.
And the longer it takes, the more expensive that becomes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so at this moment we'll increase it to 450 a year 2 and just see what the implications are tomorrow.
Just clarify that. That's
And onwards.
year 10.
In the old days it used to be a councillor's house. In the old days it used to be a councillor's house, didn't it?
All I'm trying to do is come back with 400,000 to be a friendly neighbour, and if it's affecting properties, then that should be the priority first, and then you do the rest of the road.
Through the chair, the number of properties on a road or a section of road does play an important part in building that priority matrix.
Right, you got that, Kelly?
Yep, sorry, and just one more thing. So, Tirohanga Road, so right at the other end, looking at you, right at the other end that we've had lots of trouble with where it goes onto the state highway, that they're worried about the dangerous, the width of it being dangerous when you've got a truck coming on one side. And is there anything that we're able to do there, or is to make that wider?
So through Chair, Dennis is looking for the figures, but we've got some money in the LTP to widen Tirohanga Road.
For year 1 and 2 of the LTP, we've currently got 300 each year for widening of Tirohanga.
So 600k.
And is it at that end where they're talking? Yep. Yep, cool. Thank you.
through Mark's asked me on several occasions, and I've provided that answer to him.
You've had a real one this morning, Kirsty, haven't you? So you can go back to... Yeah. Right, thank you, Hadley.
There's a number of submissions in there regarding speed limits, which are not related to this process. They're more related to the speed limit bylaw.
Where are we at with that? That's out for...
That goes out for consultation this month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yes. Yep. I think that's probably a sensible solution, given that obviously decisions in here won't be made until later than that. So actually, it probably makes sense to include them.
Lovely. All right.
Just through the chair, just relating to that, that speed limit bylaw process, we have identified a number of roads where we are changing the speed limit, and there is a large proportion of the network that we're not looking at the present time. So there may be occasions where someone has submitted here that won't actually be considered as part of the speed limit bylaw process.
Right. Next one, Hadley.
There's some comments in there around the Great Lake Walkway, or the Lions Walk, but I think we'll address those when we get through to parks and reserves and playgrounds, because there's a few that are related to that. Sorry, I'm just checking through the remainder to ensure there's nothing else. There's Motorsport Park requesting ceiling widening on Broadlands Road.
Widening where? Out to the motorsport park?
I'll just get that submission.
Through the chair, that's the approach from town to the intersection, the off-road highway where you turn left into the motorsport park. They're essentially wanting a left turn slip lane there.
So it's submission 115 at the top of page 2135.
Through the chair, we have operated a database like all local authorities do for areas where safety has been identified as an issue on the network, and a little bit like the seal extension matrix, it has a whole lot of weightings depending on the impact, and that's how we can prioritise it, because obviously we've got far more projects identified than there is funding available, and that's how we prioritise it. So that's what that response is talking about, is putting it within that.
To clarify what they're saying is this would be considered a minor, not a high priority.
That's correct.
I just think you need to be really careful in terms of
So the next page, there's a submitter requesting that car parks be made wider in Turangi, and staff response is that they will review the entrances to ensure that they meet council's standards.
What page is that one, sorry?
3,
2136.
Mr. Chairman, could I query what's the entranceway? What's that physically? Is that the entranceway into the car park, or the car park space? Just the entranceway. Okay.
Council car park. Where are they talking here, Tom?
In the CBD, town centre, by hardware there.
Oh, there.
There are horses bailed out on us a while back as well.
Are they too skinny?
I think that there's a bit of a thing there. It's one way in. at the one at the Hammer Hardware coming in. It's a one-way in, and you're supposed to go out the other way. And a lot of people don't go out the right way. They want to go out at the Hammer Hardware one, and it is for one way. It's not for, and it's marked for one way. So.
That's not the car parks, that's the entrance way to the car parks.
Okay, we'll have a look. We'll have a look at that.
At the bottom of page 2138, submitted 193. This is separate from obviously the other transport discussions around the intersection where Napier Taupo Road meets Lake Terrace. The submitter is suggesting a very large traffic island. Some funding's been allocated in 21-22 to investigate options for improving that intersection.
Yep. Good. Happy with that, Councillor Park?
It's working. We're quite often down Taupo Street now, there at Waiheke, and if people are using the ridge properly,
Bottom of 2140, submitter number 221, stating that we need a decent bus complex.
Refer Philip King. Master plan. What do you reckon, Barry? She did right here, eh? Anita Reid, Trevor's wife.
They're not wrong.
Well, the answer, we're doing a bit of master plan exercise at the moment, are we? Do we mention that? Yeah.
Submission number 285, page 2145 from Bike Taupo, and there's a substantial list there, 1 through 12 of requests.
Transport strategy again.
Yeah, I believe that all of those people will be notified directly prior to this process completing. Yep.
Through the Chair, we are reviewing the walking and cycling strategy, aren't we? So that will be all encompassing within that program.
Through the Chair, Your Worship, while these individual projects might not form part of the transport strategy, the overall thrust of what you want to do in terms of transport is likely to provide guidance for where these specific projects lie.
Just in terms of the remaining submissions, there's a few requests there from particularly Turangi around bus services between Turangi and Taupo, and that the response is that Council is currently reviewing the bus service and would like central government to consider new solutions for public transport that are more flexible. And then the second point that comes up is related to Kids in Cars program. Submission number 335 on page 2149.
withdrawn by NZTA, Your Worship.
Chair, how much was it?
Through the Chair, I'd have to find that out. I don't know that off the top of my head. So, Councillor.
Is this something that they could apply to a partnership grant as part of, or is this, with the changes in this, the new government's priorities, is it something that NZTA might start to refund?
There was something on TV in the weekend, some outfit down. Was it? Yes. What was that?
That was down near Wellington somewhere. They did a day where people could take their cars, and the car seats, I think out of the amount of car seats they had, 98% of them failed to have been fitted properly. So it is something that definitely is needed.
So you didn't talk about what organisation was doing it?
I can't remember, no. It was a voluntary organisation, yeah.
Okay, people happy with the response there? Yep.
Immediately below that is a request from the Kinloch representative group for some work to be done on safety on a range of roads.
Yep, good.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the 350,000 allowed over 2 years has got Kinloch Road footpath is at Whangamata Road. Oh, so what footpath would that be?
It's from the end of the existing footpath out towards Whangamata Road.
Oh, when you turn down into Kinloch itself. Okay.
Alright. Happy?
That's it for transport, unless anyone else has got anything they would like to raise.
Transport issues, but are they going to be part of the Northern Approach discussions?
It depends on which ones you. If it is, yeah, obviously tomorrow's going to discuss all of the points that were in the consultation document regarding the Northern Access.
Okay.
If there's anything else, now would be the time to raise it.
Traffic lights versus roundabouts and all that stuff.
Versus bridges.
Tomorrow.
Because one of the documents here states that the bridge is outside the 10 years, and then another page says it's 28, 29, which is in that 10 years. So
Tomorrow, that's all part of it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other transport ones? No? There we go. 20 to 12. Hadley?
Yeah.
What's next?
So that concludes the core infrastructure areas, other than obviously the that part of the transport. Happy to move into fees and charges if that's something you'd like to go to now.
What time's lunch? No? No, it's not really. It's not. Yeah. So people want to, okay, comfortable? 2-second break? Okay, 2-minute break. Brenda. I must send him a copy of that. Look at him going.
Rosie did introduce him as Brenda. She did.
Oh,
Purposely.
yeah. Right, they're requesting a increase of 15,000, correct? Sorry, I wasn't here for the submission on this, so what was the reasons around it, do you know? Pay rise?
Obviously costs have increased and so on and so forth. But I guess it would depend if there were more partnership agreements, wouldn't it? And whether we'd...
So, sorry, I suppose just to clarify with these submissions, so back in December 2015 you adopted a new grants and partnerships policy. That policy sets out the process for how this process runs, and we're in an interim period between the adoption of that policy and this LTP. Essentially what it said was once this LTP is adopted, we'll have a new regime, one in which we have independent distributors where cash is given to those distributors to give out as grants, and a separate amount retained for partnership agreements, which are 3 yearly arrangements, similar to the service agreements that we have now, but slightly different. 3 yearly arrangements with organisations, and that post LTP Council will call for applicants for both the independent distributors and the partnership agreements. What that policy said was that through the LTP Council will set the total amount of money. So rather than going through each individual person who's submitted on the LTP and deciding how much they'll get now, the process would be you set a total amount of money that's set aside for grants and partnerships, and within that total amount you'll make a decision around the split between how much is retained for the independent distributors to give out on your behalf and how much is retained for partnership agreements, which would be the 3 yearly arrangements. So really, rather than individually going through each one of these, it's more a high level discussion around how much money you wish to set aside for grants and partnerships, and then what that split's going to be between grants and what the split's going to be with partnerships. Once that decision is made, we'll then call for applicants who will apply to those funds, which will be a separate process outside of the LTP process where you'll make those decisions around who gets what. So over to Dylan.
We've currently got allocated 275,000 in the pot. What we've done is we've gone through and identified which ones could potentially be partnership agreements. The bigger question though is what is there a valid reason to change the pot? Now Hadley's pointed out 2 things. One is that there's the pot, the size of the pot. There's also the opportunity to wait until you see what partnership applications come forward before you divvy up that pot and allocate what goes to distribution agencies and what sits for partnership agreements. The partnership agreements will be considered by yourselves. The distribution will be, as an example, social services last year was 100,000, arts was 20,000, sports was 50,000. Then there was the Mangakino Pauakani distributed, and TT grants were distributed by them. So the 2 fundamental questions are, is your pot big enough? And do you want to make a decision now around split, or leave that for when we've got the partnership agreements in front of you?
Sounds like an idea.
Yeah, can I just talk to the decision, not about the size of the pot, about the split. I think it would be more prudent for us to wait till we've seen the applications, because I think there are some groups that will come direct to us which may affect how we split the split. And so I would prefer to wait to make that decision until after this process, which I understand is happening very shortly anyway. But the size of the pot, I guess that's a wider discussion for us.
Good.
Oh, sorry. That there's a few submitters on the fact that it's changed, and is it working anyway? So is that something we have to fundamentally think about first?
So in our conversation in the workshop, there was a question that was raised by a number of the 3 liaisons where there were different issues that were raised. We had intended on arranging some time for yourselves to talk directly with those distribution agencies. However, once they submitted on it as part of the LTP process, we had to stand back and leave it for your conversation. Those conversations remain current in terms of reviewing the policy or not. Noting that if we do review it, potentially this man's going to say significance, reconsult.
Well, it was consulted on separate from the last LTP. So we signalled in the 2015 LTP that we were going to be reviewing the policy, and that policy review happened late in 2015, and the new policy was adopted in December of that year. We did go through a range of informal consultation processes and then formal consultation as well at the time that the policy was adopted.
Okay, so I think we've got the right answers to go back to these submitters on that. On that, it's just the size of the pot. Do you want that answer now?
Yeah, we require that size of the pot answer now.
Yeah. So it's 275 currently.
It's currently 275.
Yeah.
All up.
Total. So that was the community grants was 170,000. That was distributed by independent, and then the community grants made by council was 105, totaling altogether 275. So, based on that, in terms of the general funds for the community grants, there's probably 8 that have submitted that are looking for partnership agreements that are, as I say, new process. It's not been done, so partnership agreement is what would you remove and what would you have as new partnership agreements.
So through the chair, obviously, talking about the overall pot, a lot of these agreements are looking at actually submitting for more, aren't they? For example.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The threshold to be able to apply for a partnership agreement is that it has to be over 5,000 per year, and we're looking at surety for providing those for a 3-year period, as opposed to a one-off.
There's obviously some of them have got the status quo in the previous the existing partnership agreement. They want increases. If we limit the pot, there's no discretion. Will we redistribute?
We have to redistribute within the bounds of what we've got. I don't know that we've actually got it right. I think it's created some confusion, and I've been involved in the new policy, I've now been involved in all of those groups over various times, and I don't know that not many people like it, so I think we need to be thinking about that. It's just not popular.
What do they like about the new policy?
No, it's not that. There are various groups that are missing out and will miss out because they don't fit into any criteria. Like running costs for some of the volunteers, because it's not wages, it's not this, it's just not clear. I mean, well, I don't know. It's probably both. Yeah. So and then you've got to have the 5,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some groups that are falling through the cracks because they don't fit anywhere. Okay. Well, however it is.
So
it's not working.
If I can, I just want to pull it back to the fundamental questions are the pot. The policy conversation is a separate conversation that's not attached to this particular issue. There's already been a conversation by councillors around bringing the distributors in for a conversation, and you are going to have to make a decision at some point around what is your distribution agencies for the next 3 years. If you have an appetite to change the policy after that conversation, Kate Pike, that's fine. But in this instance, what we're looking for is the pot around how those distributing agencies will distribute whatever money you decide. The clarity is the partnership agreements used to be called service level agreements. that fund is 262,000. Okay, so that is what you currently have that was already allocated for the past 3 years. That could be enough, it could not be. Okay, so the pot is the pot. You've got a total of 537,000 that is in the community space for different functions around this community space. The distribution agency are struggling with the fundamental issue of the criteria that they have to use to give out your money. We can deal with that later.
Yeah. So just at 262, what was it the previous 3 years?
That's 262.
Has it
Oh,
been
so you want to
that-
go back to further?
Yeah, how long's it been 262?
I'd have to.
Yeah, it's pretty much been consistently around that amount.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that strikes me, possibly for discussion, is we've added a whole new section in about the environment.
Yeah.
But we haven't increased the pot. So what that will mean is those who are currently in the social, the arts and sports, they now all get less? Or how do you account for the fact you've got a new category?
Or you could suggest 300k.
Or you could increase the size of the pot.
Yep. So in the grant space, the environmental area is one that is still the newbie. So definitely, that would be something to consider in terms of, are you going to reduce or increase to allow for that?
Through the chief.
Councillor Harvey? Yeah.
So just leading on from that, I think it's really timely that we think about increasing it, because that's what we're here for, to actually, look after the social services. I think that's a big part of it, so I think it needs to be increased, probably even up to 350.
Councillor Park?
Just to Chair, I've been strongly advocating for Taupo to receive more money. I think the bang for buck we get out of that organisation is unbelievable. So I definitely agree with that.
So what I'm hearing, Your Worship, is the conversation around the social services and that independent distributor agencies. You've currently got 100,000, 20 and 50 for sports, arts, social arts and sports. That increase on that side, I suppose I'm just looking to do it separately.
You said you didn't want the split now.
You don't want the split.
No, so you've got, well, no. So,
you don't. It's
sorry.
just the pot.
Yeah.
Let's stick to pot.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dylan. Consider yourself told off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll just do pot.
So told.
Councillor Williamson?
I know, I disagree with Rosie, and I think really increasing the pot, it may or not, it's not necessarily a target. I think this gives us that leeway to distribute it as we feel fit. Yeah.
So your pot is currently 537,000.
So what we're saying is that the 262, I suggest taking it to 300. So
I'm not splitting it because
you're
I got told
500.
off.
You're 500. Yeah, whatever the what's that? 30 grand, whatever. But there's a suggestion here to make it 350. So
I'll just for your information. Yeah. For your information, I'll just highlight where the new requests for new money.
Yeah.
So there was one that was for an extra 15,000, which was from Wilder House.
Yeah.
There was one for an additional 10,000 for the Taupo School of Music, and Winterfest, which was outside of the community grants, was for another 10,000. The Sculpture Trust, those are the next, so their administration costs can be a part of a partnership agreement, but the 200,000 is another conversation. Yeah.
to take it up, what, 50k?
Sorry.
Yeah. So the total pot is what, 500 and how much?
537.
537.
600.
So take it up to 600.
Yes, that's.
we'll see what Alan
Can I
says.
suggest
We'll see
that
what
we
Alan says in the morning.
come back to this after we've actually worked out exactly who wants what? Are we doing it round the wrong way?
So the reason we've taken the split out is that once you resolve out of this process, that's it. You have to then go through a process. By setting the pot limit, you've got the ability to then go through and work out what the split is once you get the partnership agreements through in July. So we've got the forms coming up. We'll start the process in June. You can then go through and divvy up who goes to what then.
And also,
and
they might not have normally applied for $5,000, but if they know that that's what they have to do now, if they normally applied for 4, they're going to,
Yeah.
okay, now we'll
And-
apply for 5.
And I
Yeah.
think that with the 5, getting the 5, that's a surety for 3 years that they're going to have that 5, and that's not what they've had in the past. And that's a really good, that's a real plus.
Alan?
Through the chair, Will
Okay, suggested figure is 600, but Alan won't be able to sleep tonight, so he'll be reporting back in the morning. Right, next one, Dylan.
So we're on page, well, that really covers off the vast majority of community engagement, but the next...
sorry, through the chair, is that going to be 600 each year then?
Correct.
So it's not just the first year, it's the other years as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 5:32 now.
The TEL Community Fund, we still need to knock that one out too.
Is that part of this process? No. Yeah. Okay. Right.
So the second point for community engagement is a request from the New Zealand Memorial Museum for support for a war memorial in France. Submission number 13 at the bottom of page 1773.
So I can talk to this one just because not because I've got any view on it, but just because I sat through a presentation in Wellington at Local Government New Zealand Rural and Provincial Sector meeting, where Jeffrey Palmer came along and presented, and we've subsequently been contacted me, and so I've had a bit of correspondence with them. Essentially what they're asking for is $1 per ratepayer for every ratepayer in New Zealand. As I understand it, some councils have agreed to it, some have not agreed to it, and some have provided part, so there's no firm one way or the other. It's a New Zealand museum over there. It's totally over to you.
Yeah, it's a hard one, this one, isn't it?
I'll kick it off by saying no.
What's the general flavour around New Zealand? Sorry.
It's really mixed. Some, as I understand it, some councils have agreed, some have
depends on the age
not
group.
agreed, and some have given part funding. Look, the project itself, sitting there listening to the presentation, I don't know if you guys know the story of Vic Quinze, but it's an amazing place, an amazing history. If I ever go to France, I'll definitely go. But
similar in Greece, like a lot of Kiwis.
Oh, this is right up there in terms of here.
I'm with Mr. Body on this.
At this stage, unless they want to give us a site visit. Yeah. Subject to 14. Is that close to Iceland? That's where you went last, isn't it? In Junket? All right. Okay. All right. So we're very supportive of the project, but just unfortunately at this stage, we don't believe there's. Yeah. We're actually doing our own museum. Yeah.
12 people here.
Is Lacane World War One or two?
One.
One.
Lakeman's A.
You sure it's not Lacane?
No.
I beg to differ. All right.
So that's really community engagement done. You'll note through the submissions there's a couple of comments around tūrangi events, and that will be covered off through when we're talking economic development. So we can follow this up later. I know that lunch is here, so I'm not sure what you plan. Would you like to carry on? Lunch has arrived.
Scott here, which is talking about fees and charges, because most of them are around AC bars. So I don't know if you want to
do fees and charges now, and then we'll have lunch.
Yeah.
Right.
This is you and Res free swimming for kids.
What's that?
You and Res for free swimming for kids. Yeah, this is the place. Local.
Okay. What number?
Sorry, just waiting for it to open. Page 1939. So, as mentioned, there were a few submissions around the proposed increases to fees at AC bars, and they're sort of summarised in that first point there, submitter 81.1.
And also there was a Sandra Greenslade one. What numbers here? Is there there? Regarding the cost of the entry to children,
to the turtle pool,
and I tend to agree with her. I don't know what the costs are, but I believe we should make it free for kids in this particular area. You know, perhaps up to a certain age. I would definitely support that, but I'd like to see some costs around. You know, what would actually cost us. But I think that sends a great message out there for safety in the lake and all that sort of thing. And you know, if kids aren't using the pool because the costs are really, that really saddens me, especially in Tūrangi, lower deprivation areas. I think we could take a little bit of lead on Auckland's charge here, where they don't. But it could be staggered. It could be staggered, perhaps up to 5 free for a starter, and then next year increase it to 7 years old or 8, 9 years old. But you know, I'd like to know what cost implications of that could be. I know we.
So one of the things one of the other things that you've talked about in the past has been about locals, cost for locals or not. So when this was coming and obviously seeing what was happening, one of the things that we were thinking about and working through was just as the Mayor said, in terms of free for kids, and as I've said to you this morning a number of times, year one is really, really tight, but you could stage it in over a period of time if you're of a will to do this. But you could make it free for local kids. So visitors still pay, so your tourists still pay. Your locals, it would be for all 3 pools. So across the district, your locals would become FOC for children. If say in year one you did 5 and under, as an example, that's not going to have a huge financial impact in year one, because A, there's not that many, and B, that for 5 and under you need a parent in the pool with the kid, so you're still going to have 8, the parent needs to be on the sideline. 5 is the parent actually needs to be in the water, so that's going to reduce the amount of impact, if you like, that's going to have. You could then pick a number, whatever number you guys felt comfortable with, that you then went, say the following year you could raise it up either a year, or it could be 5 year 1, 8 year 2, 12 year 3, or 5, 12, 15, or whatever you felt comfortable with. Scott, we've done the numbers, and it's hard to know because it's a bit of a stab in the dark, given locals not what the implications are on memberships and all the rest. But we're talking 3.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon. It's quite a complicated formula to try to ascertain what the sort of numbers would be. But I think if for children around sort of 12 and under, across the district in the last financial year for Turangi would be a cost of around about $25,000, and for the AC bars would be around about $310,000. But if you wanted to do it in stages, we'd have to go back and reformulate what that would be. But I think we've got the numbers here for...
So Turangi pool for children 5 and under is 4,200.
So you're significantly reducing that impact on a yearly basis if you were to stage it. But first you need to make the decision, is it something that you want to do? We've done a little bit of looking around the country, and to date Auckland's the only one that we're aware of. There may be others that we haven't become aware of. And I remember that was through, it was actually the Waitakere Council started it, and I think it was Bob Harvey's thing that he had about healthy kids and everything, and Auckland Council then adopted that and have moved to it over time since the amalgamation of the super city. But look, it's one of those things that you need to decide, is it for the social, all the reasons that you would do it, is that strong enough for the loss of income?
So the locals, how they would that be a point of sale? Would that be an interesting process? They'd have to provide some ID?
We'd have to implement some sort of identification process, whether it's a billing. Library cards, they bring some along. Or, so there's additional there's additional administration costs, and also there would be probably potentially an impact to the operational costs as well. So if we're the local pools that is for free, you might get people travelling from out of town.
So you get used to bringing an ID, wouldn't they? If they knew there wasn't any charge. Councillor Hickling.
So, has these new proposed increases been included in the...
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
So you'd be unwinding that.
So
yeah.
we'll be unwinding that.
Yeah, but sorry, this isn't working. What I think would be a really interesting exercise, though, is if you actually make it free for under 5s. Most people have more than one child, so people may still be encouraged to come more to the pool. So it'll be interesting to track what happens. Because
you could bring that out of revenue.
Yeah, because what I'm concerned about is some of these price indications and the murmurings that people aren't going to go. So forecast we may drop back with attendance as well. So and here as well. Yeah, if you've got a family of 3.
I think. I try.
Councillor Park. Sorry.
Yep.
Do you mind holding this?
No, I'm sorry. I need.
Maggie was just a belt ahead of steam.
Waving, trying to get in from the beginning. I do find it difficult sometimes to be heard. I think if we're going to look at this, it needs to be across the district. It's because you've got children in Taupo and Mangakino that are in exactly the same situations as in Turangi. So I can't see that you can differentiate. If you're looking at it where you've got to have it's a local, then could it be that they can go to the council office and get something like a special wristband or something that says that that they are local, that they can take to the poll, something, a disc or whatever. But yeah, I would definitely support it, but across the district.
So you probably wouldn't, that would probably be administratively harder. What you do is at the pool once a year, you do a card or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Once a year.
Yeah.
Councillor Park.
Yes, through the chair. I actually don't agree with this at all. I think that we should just stay status quo. Don't put the prices up. Just leave them where they are. And yeah, just leave it as it is. I know that some people are unfortunately financially. I just think it's user pays. I mean, the general rates already pay for a percentage, like a majority of this. So I would rather just say we've listened to the submitters. We're not going to put prices up and leave it status quo.
Councillor Kingy.
Well, thank you, Worship. Yeah, look, I like the idea. I'm in favour of the idea. I think one of the things that make me in favour of the idea is, I mean, obviously district-wide, but I mean, what makes us different to other councils is we have this huge lake out here and some beautiful waterways. So what better place to prepare our kids than in our own facilities? It's one of those things where, you know, we think about, you know, what's the value add for our community when they look at council. I know it's about flushing toilets and having fresh drinking water, but I think this is one of those creative ideas that may not have a huge impact on our bottom line, but actually the leadership that we could show our community, you know, is such that, hey, we're a council that actually care about this sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm certainly supportive of the idea.
Very well.
Preschool.
I feel that if it's free and the children are using it and they've got these swimming lessons they're having, then it gives them the opportunity to actually practice those swimming lessons. They're not getting that time if they can't go to the pools.
I just wondered whether, so we're still getting some income, but whether you did it as a koha, so they can give whatever they can afford. So you'll have some families that could afford and some that, you know, it's koha whatever they can give. I don't know whether that's...
Have a donation box alongside.
Yeah, just so, yeah, and so that they realise it's not, you know, these things do cost something. Mm.
Yes, that's a good.
Well, I'll just say we usually go to Tukaro because it's cheaper, and it's closer. But preschool is 50 cents, and a family, 2 adults and 3 kids, $10. You know, and it's a heated pool, and it's indoor covered. You know, it doesn't have a hydro slide. But
I'd just like to perhaps consider this. Yeah, I think we'd have a huge. I think creates a lot of community goodwill, as Councillor Kingi said, for not much off your bottom line, and I'd like Alan to comment on them in the morning. You know, but not much off your bottom line. I reckon it's a great news story out there for all families, all families with with a lot of kids, and I think it's not going to cost us too much money. So I think we should consider. Yeah, I'd certainly like to encourage to consider it overnight.
Just through the chair, can we also consider that we're going to be upgrading the water slides and we're going to be upgrading the thermal pools and injecting quite a bit of capital into the AC bars over the next few years? So again, it just seems crazy to take away income.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Obviously, Anna does have a very strong point. With the perhaps status quo, and or even wouldn't even disagree with under 5s being free, because adults still have to go with them and swim anyway and pay or even the proposed increase. So some mixture, some blend of that. I don't know.
So what we're suggesting for year 1 under 5 free, year 2 under 7. Is that sort of
up to you?
Yeah.
Are we saying leave prices status quo after we do that, or do the increase?
The increase in the adults. Leave that for year.
Local kids.
Local kids under 5 free. Might encourage me to have more kids. It'd have to be on their card. You take them free of charge if they're under 5. Oh. Something about the locals conjures up a community ownership. I think it's good. Councillor, sorry. Dylan, sorry. So they have a tag now, do they? Okay, cool.
No. But that's operational. We can work out how you do it. You guys just need to decide what you want to do.
Yeah. Okay, suggestions here. Can I go around the table?
Sorry. Can I just from a decision-making perspective, we have consulted on a certain amount, and we just need to be conscious from a significance and engagement perspective, if it was to go back to whatever the change may be, whether you as decision makers are comfortable that you know the views and preferences of the community that are affected.
How many submissions have we had on this?
My guess would be around about 10-ish, maybe 10. Just under.
And it's all proposed all to the charges?
Relating to charges, yes.
Yeah. And they oppose them or support?
Yes, they oppose the increase.
The increase, yeah, cool.
One potential solution could be, obviously we have the annual plan next year. We could go away and do the work on whatever you decide today and bring it back as part of consultation for fees and charges for the 2019 annual plan. But ultimately, decision's yours.
Well, you're not going to get any argument out of people out there if you're going to make it free. Yeah. Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I wonder, I think just putting on a Turangi-centric hat for a second, I mean, we've had a pretty good steer around this from our community about some of the stuff, and I guess I pick up on that. I wonder, like when you start to, when we talk about it as a district, from a district perspective, I suppose that's where it becomes a little bit more interesting around the fact that we've got the AC baths, which is a huge facility, and I understand that, and it's got the hydro slides and what have you. You know, Turangi's a different beast again, and then Mango's a different beast again. But you know, if I put on a sort of a social hat for back in Turangi, you know, some of the stuff that might be motivating this is the access of for our kids to be able to engage with some of the facilities or lack thereof back home. So it's not the same argument that we could apply up here around access to a myriad of things to access. So when we start to look at it from that perspective, it does make things uneven. So for me, I'll push home because our kids don't have as much, you know, if we look at it like that. But I know we have to look at it from a district perspective. So just putting it out there that we're not comparing apples with apples in this regard. I think there's a little bit more creativity I think we could apply across that. So I'm certainly in favour of something that, you know, allows our kids to access it or something like that.
Through the chair, as far as the fees and charges are concerned, they can be addressed at any time of the year. That they're not tied into for this particular purpose. So one of the options could be leave it as they are and do more work on it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So two suggestions for overnight workings. Under fives free. In year one or not. Okay, so I'll go around the room.
So just to clarify that, what you picking up on Alan's point is that because in the significance point, I think the under fives free is a fairly easy one because you've got the parent in the water, so you could make that decision in year one and then look at a consultation thing for your fees and charges later in year 2 or 3 or whatever for anything more ambitious than that, or you leave the whole lot for that fees and charges at a later date. Bear in mind that the under fives, it's not going to have a huge financial implication because of those adults in the water as well. Yeah, so it's not going to make.
Yeah.
It's not going to make a big difference. No.
Okay. Is there an appetite to go down that track? Can I have a show of hands who would be for that? See the numbers, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Status quo, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. That's what you
And Alan will work those numbers overnight. Yeah. So locals only. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you see how that goes, and see if it works, and you've got your system in place, and then next time, with your fees and charges, you can then decide what you do, if anything.
You can see what happens with the attendance at the polls
absolutely. I hope you'll see more visits for kids and adults.
You
So.
might see more
Yeah, I think
families
you'll find
coming.
more slide passes will be sold.
Okay, so work those numbers overnight, is it? All right, anyone vehemently against that? No? Okay, thanks Hadley.
So the second main point under fees and charges was a request by the organisation Canine Friends Pet Therapy Taupo for a waiver in dog registration fees for dogs that perform the service of pet therapy. Sorry, submission 120 on page 1941.
So that's the harder thing as opposed to an iDog or whatever, which there is they have to be certified. I guess what we would do is you heard her last time when she came in, there's only a dozen, which are the submissions I think she's talked about a dozen.
That was all for fees and charges.